Yes, the Sacramento Kings lost tonight, but they have more than earned our confidence as fans for how the rest of this season and the playoff race will go. The Kings belong where they're at in the standings here at the All-Star break, and keep in mind the context of the season up to this point while we break down the Sacramento Kings loss to the Phoenix Suns right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season long. Today, presented by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports reporter and producer for ABC 10 News. Been a while since I've recorded a post-game pod here in my home studio. Don't do it anymore as much as I used to in the past. And based off of how games have gone with me watching from my couch this year, maybe that's a good thing. I'm now 0-3 watching games at home this season. So the point of me bringing that up is if you want to blame me, you want to blame my couch, you want to blame my new house, whatever. I'll take it. I'm absolutely okay with that. But the Kings lose to the Phoenix Suns 120-109. And I understand if fans look at this loss tonight and are disappointed or are frustrated or saying, man, this is one the Kings probably needed to get. I think it's a valid point. I've brought up in the past, building up to this game last week, that this game against the Phoenix Suns is the last time, more than likely, you're going to take on a shorthanded Suns team, right? Kevin Durant, I guess this was the first game that he was there in Phoenix. Of course, he's not going to play until after the All-Star break, but the Kings still have to play the Suns 2 more times. And based off where the two are in the standings, the Kings are still in third place after tonight's loss. The Phoenix Suns will be 1 game back now, I believe. So it's right there. And with 2 games remaining and the Kings already being 0-2 to the Suns at this point, with the expectation that in those final 2 games, Kevin Durant is going to be available for Phoenix. I understand fans going, man, if the Kings were going to have a chance in any kind of tiebreaker with Phoenix or to create some separation against Phoenix, this was going to be it. So I understand you completely. And I'm not going to ignore that or dismiss that when trying to spread my optimistic viewpoint for at least how I'm feeling about the Sacramento Kings given this loss. Again, 120-109, the Kings lose in Phoenix. And even with Kevin Durant out, even with this Phoenix Suns team being pretty shorthanded and trying to reacclimate with not just the pieces that they traded away in that Kevin Durant deal, but also like Devin Booker still returning from his injury. Chris Paul was out a good portion of the season with injury. Like, even given all those circumstances, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and Devin Booker are still the big 3 here. Kevin Durant is going to add a much, much bigger 4, right? But with it being a road game, the context of the standings, and still how good this core is together and how experienced this Suns team is. Make no mistake about it. They, 1, know how to play together, and 2, are championship or bust. And they were championship or bust even before the Kevin Durant trade, and this trade just solidified it in everybody's eyes. I'm not saying I'm okay with this loss. I'm not saying that this loss is acceptable. I'm also not saying that it's surprising. Like, I'm not surprised by this loss at all. In fact, part of me kind of expected this loss given the circumstances of the standings and what the Phoenix Suns are trying to do and where the Phoenix Suns are trying to go. Again, it doesn't dismiss my disappointment or anybody's disappointment in the Kings not being able to figure this one out. And there's a very good chance that we could look back at the standings not just at the end of the season, but maybe 2-3 weeks from now and see the Suns leapfrogging the Kings and look at this game here tonight and go, man, if the Kings had gotten this game, how different of a trajectory would they be on? So if you are feeling disappointed tonight and if you are not happy, well, I mean, I don't expect anybody to be happy after the Kings loss, but if you are maybe leaning more to the pessimistic side than the optimistic side, I want you to know I understand you. And I don't think you're wrong necessarily. Let me explain to you why I'm on the other side. First and foremost, like I said in the introduction, and like I'll lay out here for you, the Kings have earned my total confidence in them. Now, I was having a conversation with Ray, LL Cool Ray. He's a phenomenal Sacramento Kings supporter, a very active Kings member on Twitter. He and I actually went to high school together, believe it or not. Ray is tends to lean more kind of on the pessimistic side of things, as do most Sacramento Kings fans based off of our history, right? And he and I were having a little bit of a back and forth, and he was talking about how tonight was one of those games that like one of those wins that the Kings need to steal. And his words were in order to have a chance. And my question is, have a chance at what? Is it a chance at a top 3 seed, top 4 seed, and home court advantage in the opening round of the playoffs? If so, he's probably right. But if it's have a chance at actually making the playoffs, avoiding the play-in and being a top 6 seed, I think the Sacramento Kings are fine. Of course, a win always helps, but I'm not concerned about the Kings and their ability to hold a top 6 seed because they lost to the Phoenix Suns tonight. Because I personally put way, way, way more weight in the Kings' win against the Dallas Mavericks on Saturday night, how they bounced back after the loss on Friday night, facing a Dallas Mavericks team now featuring Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. Granted, they need time to figure out how to play together. I don't care. It was still a tough win for the Sacramento Kings to grind it out in overtime, to do it without a extremely important piece in Malik Monk off the bench. We just saw tonight in Phoenix how significant that loss is for the Sacramento Kings, not having Malik available. Like I put more weight into that, how the Kings were able to respond to that, than I put into tonight's loss on the road in Phoenix against a Suns team that, they're behind you in the standings, and there's a strong likelihood that they'll finish above you in the standings. If I were a betting man, I'd put my money on that. And I'm not necessarily accepting that as reality and just saying the Kings shouldn't even try. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, based off of the KD acquisition, like the Suns aren't just gunning for the Sacramento Kings 3rd seed. They're gunning for the Memphis Grizzlies 2nd seed. And if they're going to have any I don't know if they're going to have a chance at catching the Denver Nuggets at number 1, but regardless of seeding, like this Phoenix Suns team is built to not just win the Western Conference Finals, but win the whole damn thing. Like that is their goal. That is their window. Now they don't have to win right now or it all falls apart because Kevin Durant's still under contract. There's conversations about Kyrie joining the Suns in Phoenix next year. So it's not like it's a all in now and they have to panic if they're not there. I'm just saying this Suns team is built to win the West and win the whole damn thing. So I take that again into account when I'm thinking about the significance of this game and the importance of this game and my disappointment level in a loss versus my acceptance of that loss or understanding of that loss over the course of an 82 game season, and with this game being on the road. But again, context is extremely important. If I had told you, imagine if I had turned on this podcast or started recording a podcast and I told you at the very beginning of October, let's say it was the day before opening night, and I had told you that at All-Star break, the Sacramento Kings would be in the 3rd seed in the West. They would be 7 games over 500, and they would have 2 All-Stars plus an All-Star representation in every single night of All-Star weekend. You would be thrilled, right? We all would be thrilled. We'd be throwing a party. We'd be throwing a parade. That, I think it's important to remember that and think about that when analyzing where the Kings are at this current point. Now, that doesn't mean that we just put on purple colored glasses for the remainder of the season and you should be happy with everything that happens from here on out and not be disappointed at all. I'm not saying that at all, right? You can absolutely feel the way you feel as a fan, and you can absolutely be disappointed with how tonight's game went and how the remainder of the season goes. And look, there's a very real chance. Like I see the standings and I see people's concerns and stuff like that. And I even understood those of you who were aggressively disagreeing with my okayness, if that's a word, with the Kings kind of staying put at the trade deadline. Like I understand your points. Like there's a real chance, an absolutely real chance that the Kings fall out of the playoff picture. I mean, there's only a 4-game gap or something like that between them and like number 10 or whatever it is. Like I get it. There's also only a 2.5-game gap between the Kings and number 2. And they're in number 3 for a reason, because they've earned it to this point. They belong here. I'm not just cherry picking Saturday night's win and choosing to put more importance in that over tonight's loss because it helps my argument, or I'm more optimistic than I am pessimistic. I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm basing my faith in and my confidence in this team and my appreciation for Saturday night more than tonight's loss off of something that I've brought up many, many times here recently on the Locked On Kings podcast, and that's that the Sacramento Kings have continued to respond, and they've done so a handful of times throughout the course of the season, respond when they needed big wins or to stop losing streaks or whatever. Like, it would take a pretty significant collapse And I know they have a very difficult schedule. So does the rest of the West. Like, these teams are playing each other too. They're not just playing the Sacramento Kings. Not everybody's just lining up to play the Kings and knock them down a peg, and they're guaranteed wins on every other night that the Kings aren't playing. Like, that's not true. They're still playing each other too, right? So the West is going to be shaken up regardless. And it would take a pretty significant collapse for the Kings, a decent sized losing streak, or a chunk of losses. Let's say 7 losses in 8 games, right? It would take that, I think, for the Kings to really start to plummet down the standings like people are so afraid of. And I don't believe that that is going to happen with this team based off of what this team has showed me over the course of this year, right? Based off of the fact that they have not lost more than 3 or more than 2 straight games since November. It's literally been months since the Kings have lost 3 in a row, and there's been multiple 2-game losing streaks over that stretch where the Kings have responded in that third game in different ways over and over and over again. And I expect that to continue over the course of the regular season because that's the context that I've seen. And context is important because if you, as a wounded Kings fan, and all of us are in some way, right? If you are not able to separate your fears and expectation of doom and gloom and disappointment from your analysis of this team based off of the past, I understand you completely. And if they still need to earn your trust, and the only way for them to earn your trust is for them to actually make it to the playoffs and then win a playoff game and then win a playoff series, like, you can keep, if that's what it takes for you, that's what it takes for you. You're more than entitled to that. This team, with the exception of De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes to some extent, and other pieces of this roster that have been around for more than 1 year, like, this team is completely different than anything we've seen in the past. So I don't judge, and I try not to allow my fears of things going wrong, and maybe even my expectation of things going wrong based off of the last 16 years, to affect my decision making when it comes to this team. I choose to just look at this team and the facts of what they've put together with the full context of the 50 some odd games that they've played so far this season. And from what I've seen, they have an ability to respond over and over again. They avoid long losing streaks. They win big games like they did on Saturday night. And I also have the expectation that this All-Star break is going to do wonders for them, get them rested, get their shooting legs back underneath them, and get them back to playing the basketball that they were playing in the first couple of months of this season, with the exception of that 0-4 start. So I feel fine. I feel great. Now, again, if you don't feel that way, I totally understand you. Totally get it. And it's okay. Let's talk about it. At Matt George Sack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below, because there's fans on both sides and there's fans in the middle, right? We all want the same thing, whether we're feeling positive, whether we're feeling negative. We all want the same thing, and that's fine. And look, I'm happy to say from my position here on the record, multiple times on the record, whether it's on social media or here on Locked On Kings or on ABC 10 newscasts, I believe with complete confidence that the Kings are going to be a top 6 seed in the West and are going to just make the playoffs outright. If they collapse and fall out of it, and you want to blame me and mock me and put this on freezing cold takes and stuff like that, that's fine. I don't care. Like, I really could care less, because we're all wanting that. That's what we all want. And if it makes you feel better that I predicted it and it was wrong, okay, like, so be it. But as of right now, this team has earned that confidence from me. I think this team has earned that confidence from anybody who feels the same way. And that's how I choose to look at it. And part of the reason why they've earned this confidence is because of the play of De'Aaron Fox. Here's a reality about the rest of the season. De'Aaron Fox is probably going to have to play every second of every fourth quarter for the remainder of the season, unless the Kings are blowing out teams, which I think they have back-to-back games coming up against, like, the Oklahoma City Thunder and OKC. I'm not saying those are going to be easy games by any means, but if the Kings can find ways when they're taking on opponents that aren't gunning for them in the Western Conference, which might not be anybody at this point, because even teams are trying to play spoiler, but when they're taking on teams that they should handle their business against, hopefully there are some games in there where the Kings have a comfortable enough lead in the fourth quarter where De'Aaron can take a rest or two. Same thing with Domantas Sabonis. But for the majority of games, and especially when we get to the playoffs, De'Aaron Fox is going to play every second of the fourth quarter. And he needed to play every second of the fourth quarter, with the exception of the very, very end, plus the final couple minutes of the third quarter, because when he wasn't on the floor, the Kings were a disaster playmaking-wise. Davion Mitchell, he's been the most disappointing part of this Kings season so far, and it sucks to have to say that. He had some good moments recently, especially defensively, but overall, Davion Mitchell has been a disappointment. And the reality is, we are clearly seeing how big of a loss the Malik Monk injury is to the Sacramento Kings right now. Malik Monk is the primary playmaker for that second unit. When De'Aaron Fox steps off the floor, even with De'Aaron and Malik sharing a lot of floor time together, when De'Aaron steps off the floor, Malik Monk is out there to still attack the basket, to run the pick and roll with Domantas Sabonis. Also does a great job running the pick and roll with Chimezie Metu too. He can, of course, space the floor. He can find his teammates. He's a much better passer than I realized. Like, Malik Monk runs that second unit. He does it in a way that Davion Mitchell just either can't or is not ready to at this point in time. So even if he's coming off the bench, even if he is a sixth man, the loss of Malik Monk is significant, and I'm glad that he'll have an all-star break to hopefully fully recover from the ankle sprain that he is dealing with. But De'Aaron Fox, 35 points tonight, 12 of 22 from the field, 4 of 7 3-point range, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, had 12 points in the third quarter, 7th in the fourth quarter. I'm so glad that he's getting the representation that he deserves here at the All-Star game, and I'm hoping he balls out in the All-Star game. At the same time, too, I hope he gets as much rest as freaking possible. Same thing with Domantas Sabonis and the rest of this roster during the All-Star break, because they're going to need every ounce of energy for this war of a playoff race that we're going to have in the Western Conference coming up once the All-Star break is done. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. We're at the midway point of the NBA season, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. So you can bet without a sweat. You can put $100 on the Sacramento Kings to win. If they lose, hey, you get free bets back. That's the best part about FanDuel's promotion that they have going on right now. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scores and threes drained. They have it all for you. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. That's how I like to make my money, and that's also why I get the cold sweats sometimes watching sporting events. When you're just one thing away from cashing in on that same game parlay, you never know what you're going to hit. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Oh, Terrence Davis. The glories and the pitfalls, right? The good and the bad, the blessing and the curse. You have to take it all in a package deal that's named Terrence Davis. And truth be told, like, there are some negatives certainly to bring up and talk about Davis's play, certainly tonight and over the last couple of games, but and really over the course of this entire season. But more often than not, I'm impressed by Terrence more than I'm disappointed by him, and I'm more positively excited by Davis and his impact than I am concerned about those TD moments, right? And he has those TD moments; they're going to happen. But especially over the last couple of games, I thought Terrence Davis has done as good as he possibly can to step up as that microwave scorer and that presence off the bench that the Kings are lacking with Malik Monk out. Terrence Davis had 11 points, 4 of 8 shooting from the field, 3 of 5 shooting from 3-point range, did turn the ball over 3 times. Also had like a really bad foul at one point, fouling Josh Okogie. I know they reviewed it. I thought it was going to be called a flagrant, but upon review, I'm glad they didn't call it a flagrant foul. Either way, it was a 4-point play for Okogie. It's just one of those, come on, TD. And I literally tweeted that out. I was like, come on, TD. Like, you're better than that. You know how to close out to the side, not just go right through the player and make the contact. That's an easy foul call. So Terrence is going to give you those moments. And he also had some moments where he turning the ball over. He was just trying to do too much, kind of taking on that floor general Malik Monk role when De'Aaron Fox was out of the game. That's just not his game. Or if he's able to do it, it's in very limited stretches, not as much as the Kings needed him to do it or Davion Mitchell to do it tonight. So a lot of people are going to focus more on the bad than the good from Terrence Davis, but I'm telling you, over the last couple of games, Terrence has been really solid for the Kings, and I'm happy to see him back in the rotation and getting consistent minutes. And I'll say this too, Terrence Davis has really impressed me with how he's playing defense, and it's not just like his lockdown defensive mind. It's not him being a lockdown defender by any means or getting a boatload of steals or anything like that, but Terrence Davis has a really good defensive work rate right now. And he had some crucial defensive moments against Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks in Saturday's win. He also had some crucial defensive moments in tonight's game against the Phoenix Suns. Now, also had some defensive blunders, of course, too. But the work rate from Terrence Davis on both ends of the floor, but especially defensively, shows me that he is all in and he's giving his all here on a getaway day. Like, I don't know exactly how it works. I don't know if the Kings are going to all take a team plane back to Sacramento. As far as I understand, typically at this point, now players kind of go their separate ways. They'll go home or go to like a vacation. Some will go to All-Star Weekend, of course. Like I don't know how the organization goes necessarily, but this is a getaway day for these players, right? Who knows if Terrence Davis is going to All-Star Weekend to support his teammates? Maybe he's going back to Sacramento to keep working and get some rest. Maybe he's going to his hometown. Maybe he's going on vacation. We don't know what he's doing, but still, he took the floor tonight. He took the floor over the last couple of games, and he was ready to give his all and step up and have a high work rate on both ends of the floor. And I really appreciate that. Now, that should be the expectation for every player on every night, but I'm just saying I saw it. And I appreciate it, and I recognize it from Terrence Davis. And I'm hoping that this version of Terrence Davis is what the Sacramento Kings will have for the remainder of the season, and that it doesn't go away when Malik Monk makes his return. Also want to talk about Kessler Edwards a little bit. Kessler played 10 minutes tonight. First look that we got at Kessler Edwards, and I'll say for the most part, I was impressed. We've heard about Kessler and know about his versatility as a defensive wing. He, in his 10 minutes, spent most of his time guarding Devin Booker. Devin still scored on him a handful of times, but Kessler Edwards, I thought, did a really good job on just individual one-on-one defense on Devin Booker. Really good perimeter defense, stayed in front of him, contested every shot. Again, Devin made most of them because it's Devin freaking Booker. But I thought Kessler Edwards played really well. Now, here's what we have to address. Kessler Edwards in 10 minutes, 0 points and took one shot. Does that sound familiar? Sounds like KZ Okpala, doesn't it? The Kings now have two wing defenders that are good enough to play in the rotation and are valuable to a team like Sacramento who struggles and got killed defensively tonight. I mean, the Suns were scoring at will. They were breaking down the Kings. And Domantas Sabonis is going to get blamed for a lot of things, or at least it's going to look bad box score wise on Domantas Sabonis with the amount of dunks and bunnies at the rim that DeAndre Ayton got. But in reality, Domantas Sabonis and whatever Kings big was playing down low, they had to help so much on guards and wings that were getting into the paint. And there was no weak side defender coming over to help against Ayton. So Ayton was just getting clean looks, floaters, dunks, layups in the paint. And that's on the Sacramento Kings team defense, not on any one guy. It starts with the guards or whoever's on the perimeter getting beat. Then on Sabonis for not rotating fast enough, or the big for not rotating fast enough and cutting them off. And then for the weak side defender for not picking up Sabonis's man and helping Sabonis, who's trying to bail out whoever broke down first. So, I mean, this all falls on top of each other, right? Team defense for the Sacramento Kings, been bad all season, was bad tonight. The Suns really took advantage of it. Kessler Edwards and KZ Okpala are two guys that can at least help with the first part of that, right? Make it so they're not getting beat on the perimeter. That's great. That's extremely valuable for the Sacramento Kings, except if you're going to have guys like that out there who are not enough of scoring threats or scoring threats, period, to space the floor, then De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Malik Monk, whoever is trying to attack the basket is going to have a rough time with double teams, help defense, and even triple teams at times, because these guys just are not scoring threats. Now, Kessler Edwards, I know, is capable of hitting outside shots. He's got a pretty decent career three-point shooting percentage. He's a decent three-point shooter, with his time in the G League. But he's got to prove it on the NBA level. And I guarantee you teams are going to be more than willing to gamble on Kessler Edwards with an open perimeter three than they are to stay on Kessler and allow De'Aaron Fox to go without help into the lane, or Domantas Sabonis without help into the post, right? It's an easy gamble for every single team to make when either KZ Okpala or Kessler Edwards are on the floor. One of the two of them, hopefully both of them, but one of the two of them needs to find out how they can insert themselves as an offensive threat, or at least more often than not, make defenses pay for sagging off of them. If not, the two of them are never going to play, because offense is so important to this Kings team. And even with the benefit that they bring defensively, if they being out there is going to limit what Fox and Sabonis and the rest of the Kings star offensive players are going to do, you're damn right Mike Brown will take the frustrations of giving up points in the paint when he knows that he has an offense that is as prolific as Sacramento's is, to where sometimes they can just straight up outscore it. And they've been doing that over the course of this season. So I like what I saw from Kessler Edwards. Had some really good moments. Got to hit shots, or it's just the same problem that the Kings have had all season long. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members that you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, your company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. We're talking about having like an NBA scouting department or essentially a talent scouting department in your back pocket. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast. And here's the kicker, for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications all on one platform. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So we're here. We made it to All-Star Weekend, and I think a lot of us fans and certainly media members are looking forward to the break just as much as the players and coaches and even front offices at this point in time. Although it's not going to be any rest on this side of things. I'm very excited to announce and I've said it before on Locked On Kings podcast, and I just announced it recently on social media. But if you did not hear, I'm going to be in Salt Lake City from Thursday through Monday to cover the All-Star game. This is my first ever All-Star game that I'm having the opportunity to cover. I don't know why I put that caveat. It's the first All-Star game I've seen, period. And I'm very, very excited. I'm also super excited because the amount of representation that the Kings have, including just announced Kevin Huerter, as expected and as kind of leaked by De'Aaron Fox not too long ago. Kevin Huerter will be representing the Sacramento Kings in the 3 points contest on All-Star Saturday night. So you have Keegan Murray in the Rising Stars Challenge and Team Gasol, which Pau Gasol might be a general manager or might get a general manager job based off of how well he drafted his team. Team Gasol in the Rising Stars Challenge has Keegan Murray, Benedict Mathurin, Jaden Ivey, and Paolo Banchero. How in the world did Pau Gasol pull that off? So I think his team is favored. So I'll be covering Keegan on Friday. On Saturday, Kevin Huerter in the All-Star 3-point contest, plus all the rest of the shenanigans happening. And then, of course, both De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis on Sunday. And we'll find out what teams they play for with the draft. That happens actually right before the All-Star game on Sunday. I will be in Salt Lake for all of that, covering all of that. A lot of that content will be on ABC 10, which, of course, I work for as a sports reporter here in Sacramento. But of course, I will have a lot of that content. There are other Kings media members going that I'll hopefully collab with too. I'll have Locked On Kings podcasts from Salt Lake City from All-Star Weekend, which I'm very, very excited about. So I hope you will join me for that. And then, of course, after we get back from Salt Lake, after the All-Star break ends, we get into a period of time that we've never been in the Locked On Kings podcast history and in my history hosting this podcast. We have a playoff race. A super legit playoff race. Every single game matters, and it's new territory for all of us, right? And I'm very excited for the remainder of the season here on the Locked On Kings podcast. If you're new, welcome. I hope you'll buckle in and stick with us. All my OGs who have been with me through all of the hell. We're gonna keep enjoying this moment, and we're gonna get there together, and we're gonna have playoffs in the Golden One Center before we know it. Very confident about that. Again, if you want to talk about tonight's game, you want to talk about how you're feeling about the team, pessimistic, optimistic, you want to talk about All-Star Weekend or anything like that, let me know. Reach out to me at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up, the bell notification if you want to be notified when all those podcasts come out. They'll come out at weird times during All-Star Weekend, so be prepared for that. Also, check out all the great work that I do for the sports department over at ABC 10 and download the ABC 10 app and ABC 10 Plus to get some of that great exclusive content there as well. It's a great time to be a Kings fan, a great time to be a Kings media member, and I appreciate all of your support no matter what. Also, if you're going to Salt Lake City, hit me up. Let me know. Would love to see you and chat with you there in person. Or if you're a Kings fan in Salt Lake City and said, I'm going to support the Kings instead of the Utah Jazz, I appreciate you and would love to see you too and meet you there as well. So let me know if you're doing that. Love you guys so much. Thank you so much for your support of this podcast as always. Thanks so much for a great first half, although it's well over first half of the season to this point. Very much looking forward to here on out, going into the summer months and the spring months. And we'll keep on trucking here, just like the Kings keep on pushing towards finally a playoff berth and ending this long playoff drought. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.